Most men don't realize that the words they repeat daily are quietly shaping their destiny. Not their environment. Not their background. Not even their circumstances. Their words. Because behind every repeated statement is a belief, and behind every belief is a pattern of action. And over time, those patterns either build a man or destroy him. Stoic philosophy teaches that it is not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them. Yet many men walk through life reinforcing the very judgments that keep them stuck. They speak defeat before they even attempt. They surrender mentally before reality has even challenged them. And then they wonder why life never changes. This is not about motivation. This is about awareness. Because once you become aware of the phrases that are sabotaging your growth, you can begin to replace them with discipline, clarity, and control. The Stoics didn't just think differently, they spoke differently, and because of that, they lived differently. In this video, we break down 5 dangerous statements men casually repeat, phrases that seem harmless on the surface but are silently destroying their confidence, discipline, and future. If you've ever felt stuck, frustrated, or behind in life, chances are you've said at least one of these without realizing the damage it's doing. I'll start tomorrow. This is one of the most dangerous lies a man can tell himself, not because tomorrow doesn't exist, but because tomorrow is where weak decisions hide. It is the perfect escape for discomfort. The perfect excuse for delay. And over time, it becomes a habit so deeply rooted that action itself starts to feel unnatural. A man who constantly says, "I'll start tomorrow," is not lacking time, he is lacking urgency. He is negotiating with his own potential. He is choosing comfort over growth in small, almost invisible moments. And those small moments compound into years of inaction. Stoicism teaches immediate responsibility. The present moment is the only thing you control. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Not when you feel ready. Readiness is a myth created by fear. The Stoics understood that action must come before confidence, not after. When you delay action, you strengthen hesitation. When you act immediately, you weaken resistance. This is the internal battle most men lose daily without even realizing it. They think they are postponing effort, but in reality, they are training themselves to avoid it. The truth is simple and uncomfortable. The life you want is being delayed every time you choose later instead of now. And eventually, later turns into regret. A disciplined man does not wait for the perfect time. He creates momentum in imperfect conditions. He starts when it's inconvenient. He moves when it's uncomfortable. Because he understands that every moment of action builds identity, while every moment of delay erodes it. I'm not ready yet. This is the statement that sounds responsible, even wise on the surface. But beneath it lies hesitation, fear, and self-doubt disguised as patience. Many men convince themselves that they need more time, more knowledge, more preparation before they can take action. But what they are really doing is delaying the moment they must confront uncertainty. The idea of readiness is comforting because it creates the illusion of control. It tells you that somewhere in the future, there will be a perfect version of you, more confident, more capable, more certain. But that version is a fantasy. It does not arrive before action. It is created through action. The Stoics understood this deeply. They didn't wait until they felt fearless to act. They acted despite fear. They trained themselves to move forward even when their minds were filled with doubt. Because they knew something most men ignore: clarity comes from doing, not from thinking. When you say, "I'm not ready yet," you are reinforcing the belief that you are incapable in your current state. You are telling yourself that who you are right now is not enough to begin. And over time, that belief becomes your identity. You begin to hesitate in every area of life: career, relationships, health, waiting for a moment that never arrives. The truth is, no man ever feels fully ready. Not before starting a business. Not before approaching an opportunity. Not before stepping into discomfort. Readiness is not a prerequisite, it is a byproduct. It is something that develops as you take action, make mistakes, and adapt. There is also a hidden cost to waiting. While you delay, life continues moving. Opportunities pass. Time is spent. Other men, less talented but more decisive, move ahead simply because they act while you hesitate. And the longer you wait, the harder it becomes to start, because the weight of inaction grows heavier. A Stoic mindset rejects this illusion completely. It replaces, "I'm not ready yet," with, "I will figure it out as I go." It embraces the discomfort of being a beginner. It understands that growth is messy, uncertain, and often uncomfortable, but necessary. Think about every skill you admire. Confidence, discipline, leadership, none of these were built in comfort. They were forged in moments where someone chose to act before they felt ready. That is the difference between stagnation and progress. If you continue waiting for readiness, you will spend your life preparing instead of living. But if you start now, imperfect, uncertain, even afraid, you begin building the version of yourself you've been waiting for. Because in the end, the man who acts without feeling ready will always surpass the man who waits for the perfect moment. It's not my fault. This phrase is one of the most subtle forms of self-sabotage because it often carries a degree of truth. Sometimes things genuinely aren't your fault. Circumstances can be unfair. People can make mistakes that affect you. Life does not always play out the way it should. But the danger lies in how often this phrase is used, and how easily it becomes a shield against responsibility. When a man repeatedly says, "It's not my fault," he begins to detach himself from control. He shifts focus away from what he can do and places it on what has happened to him. And while that may feel justified in the moment, it slowly erodes his ability to take ownership of his life. Stoicism teaches a different approach. It draws a clear line between what is within your control and what is not. You cannot control external events, but you can always control your response. And that response is where your power lies. Blame is comfortable because it removes pressure. If something isn't your fault, then you don't have to fix it. You don't have to adapt. You don't have to grow. But that comfort comes at a cost, the cost of progress. A man who avoids responsibility may protect his ego in the short term, but he weakens his future in the long term. Because growth only happens when you ask a different question. Not, "Whose fault is this?" but, "What can I do about it?" This shift is everything. It transforms you from a victim of circumstance into a participant in your own life. It forces you to take action even when the situation is unfair. It builds resilience because you stop waiting for things to be perfect and start working with what you have. The Stoics believe that every obstacle carries an opportunity for growth. But you can only see that opportunity if you take responsibility for your response. If you remain focused on blame, you miss the lesson entirely. There is also a pattern that forms when this phrase is repeated too often. It becomes automatic. Every failure is externalized. Every setback is justified. And over time, a man builds a narrative where nothing is ever his responsibility, and therefore nothing is ever within his control. That is a dangerous place to be. Because the moment you believe you have no control is the moment you stop trying to improve. And when you stop trying, life begins to stagnate. A disciplined man does not waste time assigning blame. He analyzes, adapts, and moves forward. Even when something isn't his fault, he takes ownership of the outcome. Because he understands that responsibility is not about guilt, it is about power. And power comes from action. I don't feel like it. This is perhaps the most common phrase that quietly destroys discipline, because it feels honest. It feels real. It feels human. And that is exactly why it is so dangerous. Because when a man begins to trust his feelings more than his responsibilities, he places his entire life under the control of something unstable. Feelings change constantly. They rise and fall based on mood, environment, energy, and countless external factors. If your actions depend on how you feel in the moment, then your progress will always be inconsistent. Some days you will move forward, and many days you will stand still. The Stoics understood this deeply. They did not ignore emotions, but they refused to be governed by them. They trained themselves to act based on principle, not preference. Because they knew that a meaningful life is built on discipline, not convenience. When you say, I don't feel like it, what you are really saying is, I am choosing comfort over growth. You are allowing temporary resistance to override long-term purpose. And the more you repeat this pattern, the stronger it becomes. This is how habits are formed, not just good ones, but destructive ones. Every time you give in to that feeling of resistance, you reinforce it. You make it easier to quit next time. You make it harder to act when things get difficult. And eventually you become someone who only moves when it's easy. But life does not reward ease. It rewards consistency. There will never be a point where you feel like doing everything you need to do. There will be days when you are tired, distracted, unmotivated, even frustrated. And those are the moments that define you. Not the days when everything is aligned, but the days when it isn't. A disciplined man separates action from emotion. He understands that feelings are temporary, but actions have consequences. He does what needs to be done regardless of how he feels, because he is committed to the outcome, not the mood. This is the difference between amateurs and professionals. Amateurs wait for inspiration. Professionals show up even when they don't feel like it. If you want to build a strong body, a stable mind, a successful career, there will be many days where you don't feel like doing the work. But those are the exact days that matter the most. Because every time you act despite resistance, you strengthen your discipline. And discipline is what creates freedom. So the next time you hear yourself say, I don't feel like it, understand what is at stake. It is not just a single decision. It is the kind of man you are becoming. This is just who I am. This statement sounds like self-acceptance, but in many cases, it is quiet resignation. It is a man drawing a line around his current limitations and deciding that growth ends there. It is comfort disguised as identity. There is nothing wrong with understanding yourself. In fact, self-awareness is essential. But there is a difference between knowing who you are and believing you cannot change. One empowers you. The other traps you. When a man says, "This is just who I am," he is often justifying patterns that are holding him back. Lack of discipline. Poor habits. Fear of discomfort. Instead of confronting these issues, he labels them as permanent traits. And once something becomes part of your identity, you stop trying to change it. The Stoics rejected this completely. They believed that character is not fixed, it is developed. It is shaped through consistent action, deliberate practice, and conscious decision-making. You are not born disciplined. You become disciplined. You are not born resilient. You build resilience. Identity is not something you discover once and accept forever. It is something you construct daily through your choices. The danger of this phrase is that it removes responsibility for growth. It allows a man to remain in his comfort zone while convincing himself that he is simply being authentic. But there is nothing authentic about staying stuck. Every great transformation begins with a rejection of this idea. A refusal to accept current limitations as permanent. A decision to say, "This may be who I am today, but it is not who I have to remain." Because the truth is, human beings are incredibly adaptable. You can change your habits. You can strengthen your mindset. You can build discipline where there was none before. But only if you stop identifying with the version of yourself that is holding you back. There is also a deeper consequence. When you fix your identity around weakness, you begin to act in alignment with it automatically. You stop challenging yourself. You avoid situations that require growth. And over time, your world becomes smaller. A Stoic mindset does the opposite. It constantly pushes against limitation. It embraces discomfort as a tool for transformation. It sees identity as fluid, something that evolves through effort and intention. You are not your past decisions. You are not your current habits. You are the result of what you choose to do repeatedly moving forward. So instead of saying, "This is just who I am," ask a better question. Who am I becoming? Because that question puts you back in control. Most men don't fail because of lack of opportunity. They fail because of the conversations they have with themselves every single day. The phrases you repeat are not harmless. They are instructions. And over time, they shape your mindset, your habits, and your entire life. If you recognize yourself in any of these, that's a good thing. Awareness is the first step toward change. But awareness alone is not enough. What matters is what you do next. Replace hesitation with action. Replace excuses with responsibility. Replace emotion-driven decisions with discipline. And most importantly, stop speaking limitations into your own life. If this video gave you value, take a moment to subscribe to the channel and join a community of men focused on growth, discipline, and clarity. And drop a comment below. Let me know which of these phrases you're cutting out of your life starting today. Because the moment you change your words is the moment you begin to change your life. There is a quiet truth most men never confront, and it is this: your life is not being held back by a lack of information. You already know what to do in many areas of your life. You know when you are procrastinating. You know when you are making excuses. You know when you are choosing comfort over growth. The real issue is not knowledge. It is execution. And execution is shaped by identity. By the words you repeat when no one is watching. By the standards you tolerate. By the internal dialogue that either pushes you forward or pulls you backward. Every phrase we've broken down is more than just a sentence, it is a pattern. A mental habit. A script that runs in the background of your life, influencing your decisions without you even realizing it. And here's the uncomfortable part: if you do not consciously rewrite that script, it will continue running exactly as it is. Years will pass. Opportunities will come and go. And nothing will change. Not because you are incapable, but because you never challenged the beliefs that were limiting you. This is why the Stoics placed so much emphasis on awareness. They understood that before you can control your actions, you must first examine your thoughts. Before you can build discipline, you must eliminate the lies you tell yourself daily. Because a man who lies to himself cannot be trusted, even by himself. And without self-trust, there is no consistency. Without consistency, there is no progress. But the moment you begin to challenge these phrases, something shifts. When you replace, "I'll start tomorrow," with, "I start now," you create momentum. When you replace, "I'm not ready yet," with, "I'll figure it out," you build courage. When you replace, "It's not my fault," with, "What can I do?" you take back control. When you replace, "I don't feel like it," with, "I do it anyway," you build discipline. And when you replace, "This is just who I am," with, "I can become better," you unlock growth. These are not just better phrases, they are better identities. And identity is everything. Because once you start seeing yourself as a man who acts, who adapts, who takes responsibility, and who refuses to stay stuck, your behavior begins to align with that standard automatically. You stop negotiating with weakness. You stop waiting for motivation. You stop explaining your situation to people who are not living your life. And you start moving, with clarity, with intention, with purpose. That is where real change begins. Not in motivation. Not in inspiration. But in decision. A decision to think differently. A decision to speak differently. A decision to live differently. And understand this clearly. No one is coming to make that decision for you. Not your friends. Not your environment. Not even this video. It is yours. So take a moment right now and be honest with yourself. Which of these phrases have been holding you back? Which one have you been repeating without realizing the cost? And more importantly, what are you going to replace it with? Because awareness without action is wasted potential. If you've made it this far, it means something resonated with you. And if it did, don't let this be another video you watch and forget. Take action. Apply one principle. Change one phrase. Make one decision today that your future self will thank you for. If you're serious about becoming more disciplined, more focused, and more in control of your life, then subscribe to this channel. This is where we break down the mindset, philosophy, and strategies that help you build a stronger version of yourself, one decision at a time. And before you go, drop a comment below. Which of these phrases are you eliminating from your life starting today? Your answer might seem small, but it's the beginning of a completely different direction. And sometimes, that's all it takes. What makes these statements so dangerous is not just that they slow you down, it's that they do it quietly. There is no alarm. No warning sign. No moment where life stops and tells you that you are sabotaging your own future. Instead, it happens gradually. You say, "I'll start tomorrow," once, and nothing happens. You say it again, and still, nothing happens. But over time, those small delays begin to stack. Days turn into weeks. Weeks turn into years. And before you know it, you are living a life far below your potential, wondering where the time went. This is how most men lose, not in one dramatic failure, but in small, repeated decisions that seem harmless in the moment. The Stoics warned about this kind of slow decline. They understood that the greatest threat to a man is not chaos, but comfort. Because comfort makes you passive. It makes you accept less than you are capable of achieving. And once you become comfortable with mediocrity, it becomes incredibly difficult to break out of it. A simple Stoic exercise to break these patterns. Awareness is powerful, but without action, nothing changes. So here is a simple exercise rooted in Stoic philosophy that you can begin using immediately. For the next 7 days, observe your internal dialogue. Not casually. Not occasionally. Intentionally. Every time you catch yourself saying one of these phrases, whether out loud or in your mind, pause. Don't ignore it. Don't justify it. Confront it. Then immediately replace it with a stronger statement. If you think, "I'll start tomorrow," say, "I start now," and take a small action immediately. If you think, "I don't feel like it," say, "My feelings don't control my actions," and move anyway. This is how you begin to rewire your mindset. Not through big, dramatic changes, but through small, consistent corrections. The Stoics believed in daily practice. They didn't wait for transformation, they trained for it. And this is your training. Why most men stay stuck. There is a reason why many men hear this kind of message, feel inspired for a moment, and then go right back to their old habits. It's because change is uncomfortable. It requires you to let go of familiar patterns. It forces you to confront parts of yourself you've been avoiding. It demands consistency when your mind is begging for ease. Most men don't fail because they are incapable. They fail because they are unwilling to endure discomfort long enough to see results. They want growth, but they also want comfort. And the truth is, you cannot have both at the same time. The Stoics embraced discomfort because they understood its value. They saw it as a tool, not an obstacle. A necessary part of becoming stronger, sharper, and more disciplined. If you avoid discomfort, you avoid growth. It's that simple. The identity shift that changes everything. Real change does not happen when you try harder. It happens when you think differently about who you are. As long as you see yourself as someone who procrastinates, hesitates, or avoids responsibility, you will continue to act that way, no matter how motivated you feel in the moment. But when you begin to shift your identity, your actions start to follow naturally. Instead of saying, "I'm trying to be disciplined," you say, "I am a disciplined man." Instead of saying, "I'm working on consistency," you say, "I am consistent." At first, it may feel uncomfortable, even false. But that's because your current habits don't match that identity yet. And that's exactly the point. Your job is to close that gap. Every time you act in alignment with that new identity, you strengthen it. Every time you fall back into old patterns, you weaken it. This is a daily process. A constant adjustment. A quiet but powerful transformation. A short story to drive it home. Imagine two men waking up in the same situation. Same background. Same opportunities. Same challenges. The first man says, "I'll start tomorrow." He delays. He hesitates. He waits until he feels ready. The second man says, "I start now." He takes imperfect action. He makes mistakes. He learns as he goes. At the end of 1 year, the difference is noticeable. At the end of 5 years, the difference is undeniable. At the end of 10 years, they are living completely different lives. And it all started with something as simple as the words they chose to repeat. This is how powerful your internal dialogue is. It doesn't just affect your mood, it shapes your future. Final reinforcement, before your outro. If you take nothing else from this video, understand this. Your words are not just expressions, they are commands. They tell your mind what to believe. They tell your body how to act. They tell your life what direction to take. So choose them carefully. Because the difference between a man who stays stuck and a man who transforms his life is often not intelligence, luck, or talent. It is the story he keeps telling himself every single day.